We do all research, that is fine. But when you're coming to solutioning, we forget all that. It's the biggest problem. Probably tomorrow, when you're working at big projects where it is new and it requires understanding multiple different personas and giving a name to it, you will go and probably use it. Jacob's law doesn't mean you are not solving newer problems or you're bringing newer solutions. You're only bringing patterns which people are already familiar with and using them to solve that problem. That's it. If you are building something which nobody is building, probably you are building something useless. That's actually how the investor community talks. If you are working on something, it is always good that the competitors are also doing something or also actively building something in that space. It only validates that you're solving the right problem. You're not going to go to users, you're not going to understand the problems, you're not going to understand how it fits India and all this thing. You're simply going to copy and paste. That is a problem.
Yeah, it was just one question. It just came into my mind. Like when we make user sets, so is it necessary that we have to create two personas also? If like I'm solving for only one of the persona, I created two user sets just to categorize the users because I saw some related some related what characters features or some related
Demographics.
yeah. Right. So do I need to make two personas? I mean, if I'm creating three user sets, maybe. So do I have to make three personas, or do I only need to make a persona for the user? I mean, for the group
I
for which
got your question. Yeah. So fine. Firstly, for this, you have to understand why there are user sets and why you gradually form them into personas, right? So initially, when you actually create these user sets, right? So what is the process? You'll actually go and after you finish your research, when you're trying and sitting and analyzing your research, there are a lot of insights which you gathered from understanding people from your interviews, right? Also, you've done your secondary research as well, where you have gathered multiple insights about people. A lot of times, what happens based on the product which you build, there's always a very clear understanding about what are the various differences which I can observe in multiple demographics. By demographics, I mean it's about things you can use to classify people, let's say their age or age groups or gender or place they are or some preferences. It can be anything, right? So it is very natural that we clearly see different types of people who are involved in the way people are trying to use the product, right? Now, what happens is, uh, but obviously, you can land in a situation which is like, if you take it like, hey, you know what? Uh, my idea of creating user sets is to go and differentiate all types of people using the product. If you go in this manner, you might end up with some 100 to 200 types of users because uh, you know there are a lot of, for every demographic there can be 5 or 6 types, and each type can be called as a different people into the number of demographics, right? Huge number of sets can be created, right? But that's why creating user sets is not a mathematical thing, right? Instead, the way we have to put our question is, can I group people into a certain set where I can largely imagine that this set will have a kind of a behavior associated? Are there large number of people in this set? That is first question, right? Does this set represent a large number of people? Large doesn't mean more than 1 million, 2 million. It's not, that's what I mean, right? Not a specific number. I mean to say, is it literally only 3 people whom you know, or it represents general public? That's what I mean to say. Let us say female auto drivers. You might think, hey, not a lot of auto drivers are there, but still it represents a large set of people, right? It should not be that uh, mm, the set is too small that you can literally count them on fingers. That's what we mean by not a small number of people, right? So, firstly, after that, you want to represent a set of people who largely represent a set of behaviors. Now, this user set, let's say you define a certain user set, and let's say who is there? Some Srishti is there here. Srishti can be loosely be associated with one user set. Okay, but it is never true that a user set is 100%. If Srishti has to fit in user set A, she has to fit in all these things, then only she be qualified for A. Because Srishti cannot fit into these two, because 100% she has to, I have to create one more user set. That way also it doesn't work, right? There is no hard and fast. I'm only talking about user sets for now. Okay, there's no hard and fast rule that you have to 100% fit, right? Because ultimately, again, we are not solving the problem exactly for Srishti over here. We're making the products for a large group of people. So for us to actually go and make a little more calculated about what we are trying to build, to be built for a large number of people, we categorize them, right? So now what happens is, when you're trying and categorizing these people, you have done that. The user sets will have make you think about these people from the research. That's why you make an empathy map as well, right? What are they feeling? What are they seeing? Whatever. You can actually make an empathy map. Your own framework of empathy mapping also can be done. I have given one framework over there, but it is very simple. I mean, you are empathizing with them with respect to whatever you have done in the interview. It's a process to go and understand them in a much better manner. That's what an empathy map. I mean, don't do it in a textbook way. Try and approach it in a non-textbook way.
I also wanted to ask that as well, because
Yeah.
while doing it, I didn't refer to the that frame that you have provided. So I wanted to ask that.
Yes, there are multiple types of frameworks available in empathy mapping as well. You can pick your own way. The idea is to go and understand those people much better, right? From your insights. See, ultimately, what we're trying to do is, in these stages, we are converting whatever insights we have into our solutioning, right? You need to convert it. That the process of conversion needs to happen. Therefore, we need to understand users very well. You have to empathize with them and all, right? Now, you've come up to here. You worked up to here. You try to understand them. You try to categorize people largely based on the behaviors which are coming out. Now, what happens is, once you do this activity, when you go and provide your solutioning, right? It's not like the design thinking project that, okay, one step we do, tomorrow we can come up with solutioning. It's not straightforward, right? You need to keep coming back to this analysis. You need to keep coming back to your research. You need to keep coming back to your analysis, right? And sometimes what happens is, you need to also refer these groups of people and set of behaviors to other people as well, right? Then what happens? It is in general, let us say, we as people can remember people very well, right? Let us say I say Sana, or when I say people like Sana, I have a set of characteristics, set of behaviors which I have associate. Whenever I have hear the name Sana and see your face, that set of characteristics can naturally come out of me, because that is human behavior. Humans behave like that. So what if there are a set of characteristics which are identified from research? What if I give a name and a face to that, so that it acts as a ready reference to me, so that I can keep coming back to it, right? That helps me, right? That helps me in understanding my user in a much better manner, or stay close to my user. Because let us say if I know about Sana over here, right? If I'm building a product, I'll keep referring, do you think it will work for Sana? I don't think this works for people like Sana, or this, right? Because I don't have to keep saying that, hey, you know what, this product doesn't work for those 32 to 45-year-old female auto drivers who are working in areas like Chennai, Mumbai. This is very difficult to even talk as well, right? But if I attach a name to it, you and me can quickly say, let us say we say that auto driver with this is one set, and I give a name called some Lakshmi, some, right? And then some other person, whatever, I see Christy over here. So Christy, right? So I'll be like, you know what? For Christy like people, which is I define as a persona, I will be doing this. But for people like, whom did I say, Lakshmi, right? Lakshmi, this might not really fit. So let us work on a solution which might be for these both people. So persona is nothing but a ready reference for us to actually use it as a ready reference because we have to be very, very close to the insights which we got from our research. Because a huge problem is we do all research, that is fine, but when we're coming to solutioning, we forget all that. It's the biggest problem. In most projects, that's the problem. Even in real-time projects, that's the problem, right? Fine. Now that you understood the heart of why we come and make these user sets and then try and name them and call them as personas, okay? None of this is again giving you any standard textbook definition that out of 5 user sets define 3 personas. No. If you think there needs to be 3 or more or 5 or 10 standard references to the certain types and behaviors which you have identified, you can go and create that persona. You should be able to, but you should not make it confusing for your own self. If I ask you what's the difference between Lakshmi and Christine, you should be able to tell. You got it? You should not create your personas so like Christy, this is there, but let me just look at my notes and tell you the difference between Christy and Lakshmi. Right? That's not the point. Right? So that means if you make your personas very, very closely with very close related behaviors, there's no point also making them. There can also exist situations where you don't have to create personas at all, because sometimes certain standard behavioral patterns, you might not really have to sit and give a name to a set of behaviors and go and see whether your solution is going to be solved or not. You don't even have some time for it. One persona making process usually characterized in exploratory UX processes. I'll tell you what is this exploratory evaluative. Exploratory process is where you go and create some product. Evaluative is where you go and make an existing product better, right? This is a very exploratory thing. You're creating a product from scratch, identifying some problems and creating something, right? Where you need to have some reference of how users would behave, because it's new, you don't know how it works and all these things. Until you go to testing, you don't have any other reference than whatever you have interviewed, right? Therefore, personas become very, very important here. But let us say you already have a product, you have, or else let us say you brought a lot from the competitor space, or your company already has brought a set of behaviors and you know about it, and a lot of times it is happening. Places where you do not really need these ready reference, but it is very obvious for you as a designer, as a team, and all these places, you don't have to go and make personas. That's why not all UX projects talk about creating personas, right? Because you are learning a very exploratory UX process where you are preparing for that very raw problem. There's nothing existing right now. I'm still creating. Even for that situation you're able to build right now, you will be in a much better situation when you're building products for just small improvements of the experience as well, right? In the evaluate experience as well. So you learn how to actually characterize, how to divide people into multiple user sets, also try and bring ready reference of your persona. Probably tomorrow when you're working at big projects where it is new and it requires understanding multiple different personas and giving a name to it, you will go and probably use it. But yeah, right now I'll just stick to your project for now, not to confuse you more, right? So I hope you understood the heart of creating the user sets, bringing all those characteristics and grouping them, and trying and giving names to them so that they can be readily referenced, because you have to stay close to whatever research you have done. Got it? And that is what is your reference until you go and test it with real people again. Got it? Okay, very good. What I've done is in the mega project, okay, I have removed this process of creating personas. Okay, just purposefully I've done that. Instead, I introduce this framework called affinity mapping. Okay, for those people who have started their mega project, you can actually go and see this. So affinity mapping is a very simple exercise. It's a very common sense exercise. It is like there's a random set of information which is usually brought when you did your interviews. There's a lot of information which you got on your plate, right? Affinity mapping will make you organize all information into sensible groups, so that this sensible groups is what you can go and attack looking at your insights, right? So affinity mapping is done to save time, and in contexts where personas is not that much required, you want to focus more. And it is also, what happens is, a lot of products are usually built for a large characteristic, like open audience, like, you know, there is literally nothing which you can categorize over there. It literally works for everyone. A lot of products are also like that. In situations like that as well, empathy mapping can help you organize the information which is there in your research and attack at these individual sensible groups according to you. Okay, so you can read about that in the mega project, and you can also practice that when you do that project as well. Okay. Yes, Sagar.
Yeah, Nudeep, I just wanted to know that when we take UI references and interaction from other apps, is it copyright protected, or does Jacob law support that?
Yeah, I get your question. Um, Firstly, copyright is a big concept. Okay, copyright is not like what we casually think it is. Okay, it's not easy to copyright your content as well. Just because you're making content, in the sense, just because someone is making some content, I'm talking about copyrightable content as well. Okay, just because someone can make content doesn't automatically make them the copyright owners of the content. Firstly, second thing, but then let us say there is some copywriting people have done. People can never copyright on patterns. Mean to say, you can't say, hey, you know what, I've created a bottom nav and nobody can make a similar bottom nav. It doesn't happen. Generally, you cannot copyright on established patterns, right? I think your question should be more about, hey, so forget about copyright. Okay, that is never the problem. Okay, in our field, generally copyright is never a problem. Okay, your bigger problem is, won't people come and call me a copycat? That's my problem. That's the bigger problem actually, right? Because we are designers. So I'll give you an example. How many of you know GeoChat? GeoChat? GeoMeet. You know
Yeah,
GeoMeet?
I don't
yeah,
know.
You don't
yeah.
know?
It's like Zoom. They are trying to make.
So when GeoMeet came, they literally copied everything, including colors. Everything they have copied. Then what? Everyone bashed them on Twitter. Everyone, but that gave them good popularity also. They're like, any popularity is good popularity, right? Everyone got to know that there's an alternative for Zoom, and that is called GeoMeet. And some people have tried also. But it didn't matter. It didn't totally matter because they were like, see, what if it's just a copy? We are making a product more accessible to Indian users or whatever. They have their own agenda, right? And they're like, hey, we made a product, something which is very familiar. But yes, they got some backslash for copying. I'll tell you what's the problem with how people copy things. What they do is, you need to understand problems, and if there are similar patterns for going and solving a problem, go and bring those similar patterns. But what people do is, right? Let's say you want to, like Ambani, you wanted to do one business, right? So what they did, let us say, I don't know how GeoMeet came into existence, but if at all they're like, see, you're not going to go to users, you're not going to understand the problems, you're not going to understand how it fits India and all these things. We are simply going to copy and paste. That is a problem. That is what you should not do. You understood your users, you understood their problems, you prioritize what is working, what should you be building and what's not. And as a result of it, if it should be exactly what Zoom is providing, then fine. Which is usually not the case, which will not happen because they are different people. We are different people. Those people who are trying to solve problems over there have different context, different users, different things. Therefore, they have made a solution like that. And we have different research, we have different insights and different thinking. Therefore, we'll come up with a different solution. So as a result of which our solution will be different usually, right? But I don't have to reinvent a video button or a mute button, or I don't have to reinvent how the shape of a video is. I can just
Yeah,
retake.
OTT apps are very similar, look alike to
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other. Yeah.
correct. Right? ODD also has similar. So I don't have to reinvent all those things, right? But the kind of problems I'm solving, these are all just external things, right? What kind of algorithm do you want to show if you want to recommend, let's say, some TV shows? That algorithm differs if it is Prime or Netflix or Hotstar or whatever. And everyone is trying to solve problems from whatever research they have done, whatever testing they have done, or whatever data they have. So they will be different. So if someone is exactly copying as this, that means they have not even put this effort. That's what it means. But even if it ends up, again, see again, it doesn't mean you cannot solve newer problems. I've told this in the last call also. Go and listen to that recording. Jacob's law doesn't mean you are not solving newer problems or you're bringing newer solutions. You're only bringing patterns which people are already familiar with and using them to solve that problem. That's it. There's a difference between solving a new problem and a new solution, and following similar patterns. There is a difference between this. It is deep. Only when you practice it and understand it, you will understand.
Yeah, I was just going through some medial articles just for reference, and how do the people solve their problems. And I saw UI design, and I was thinking that can I use something like this in my prototype? So is it
If
legit
you
to do
if you
these
copy
things? Like,
screen to screen, everything, no?
I hope these are not copyright protected.
Again, that's what I'm saying. Forget copyright protecting, yeah. See, copyright is not the issue here. Because it is not copyright protected, doesn't mean you will just copy paste a screen and put it to your project. You got what I'm saying? The reason you're not copying is because you have your own way of understanding what is the problem and what is the solution, and utilizing similar patterns to solve a problem. That's the reason why you're not copying as it is, not because of copyright claims or whatever. Let's say I'm making a reel and I have to use some background music. If I license the music, then I can use it. If I don't license the music, it is protected by copyrights and license, right? So I can't use it. Me not being able to use a particular music there is dependent on whether the music has copyright or not. But that is not about that is not the case here. Even if there is no copyright on that, you will not simply copy it just because you want to copy it. No, you will take references from it only if your problem and solution is exactly matching whatever they also came up with. You copy patterns, and again you might have your own design language, right? Your own product. So it will come. See, the point is you follow a design process, it will come out different. 100%. No doubt, 1000%. No doubt about it. Actually, I'll tell you one more thing. I'll tell you one more thing which will happen. Hey, Anudeep, what's happening is I am trying to go and solve this problem, but I'm getting exactly the same idea what is sitting on in that competitor app. The same idea I'm getting. I'm not able to get better ideas, right? Two things you have to do. One, you did not understand your problem in a clear manner. That means your defined stage went wrong. Go and understand your problem in a much better manner. Do better at your defined stage of your project. That's one thing, right? If your defined stage is well, if you define the sense in your when you're doing your research and analysis part, the analysis part, if it is strong, you will be able to come up with better solutions. That is one. The second thing is, it can also happen that after you've genuinely done all these things, your ideas are very similar to what is already present in the competitor apps, right? They can actually, if you have a proper reasoning why you're doing exactly same thing as what your competitors are doing, you should do it. Because I'll tell you something about competition in product design, product industry, right? In product startup industry, I'll tell you something about competition. Investors are putting money, right? Because all this is about putting money and making money out of it, right? Investors never consider copy as a negative thing, right? Actually, if you attend real pitches, you have seen, right? Not the Shark Tank pitches which is seen here, but in real pitches, competition is usually actually an advantage. I'll tell you why. If you are building something which nobody is building, probably you are building something useless. That's actually how the investor community talks. Because obviously if you think of something, there are multiple billion people who might have also thought about the same idea. You know, they always say this: ideas are bullshit. They say this. They don't matter. A lot of people might have also got this idea, right? So whenever someone comes and say, "You good, I have this very unique idea. Don't go and tell to anyone." I said, dude, it doesn't matter. right? So, but let me tell you why. It is, if you are working on something, it is always good that the competitors are also doing something or also actively building something in that space. It only validates that you're solving the right problem or an important problem. So competition is not necessarily a bad thing, right? We usually get into these kind of things because right from our school, no, they're like, don't copy, or hey, that that Raghav also did the same thing. Then why are you also doing the same thing? We get to these kind of judgments, right? That's why we get into these kind of mentality, right? But none of this is true, right? If competition exists, that means it is good. You're solving the right problem, which means you can go one step ahead by finding out deeper problems, defining your problems better, providing better solutions, and you know investors wise put more money into it and solve with a bigger team and solve faster the bigger number of problems. That's how they think, right? So this is about the space about copying, but please get this perspective, okay?